सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धे भवतु मे सदा वसुदेवं सुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं Namaste and Suswagatam. We begin our second session today. I request our admin Chitraji to give a brief recap of what we saw. So we come to date what we are doing right now. Yes, please.
Hariom, is it audible?
Yes.
Okay. So in the previous session, we started off the session by understanding the relevance of Gita in the present age and its practical aspects even today. Though it is a historical event, how is it practical is what we saw, and how we can apply the concepts of Gita and the teachings of the Gita in our day-to-day lives. So some of the skills like decision making or developing insulation and resistance against fears, and what are the divine qualities, what is the concept of Swadharma, and these are some of the things that we get to know from the Gita. So then we started off with the main topic of the session, that is dealing with betrayal. We understood that we saw what is betrayal and what causes betrayal and the after effects of betrayal. So, betrayal can come in various forms. So, it is basically the misplaced trust that we keep or hold on others that can cause betrayal. The roots of betrayal arise because of the attachments that we have on others, and also the overconfidence and the blind faith that leads to the feeling of betrayal. And yeah, we understood that it comes from near and dear ones. And we saw some of the shlokas in Bhagavad Gita that showed what happened to Arjuna because once he had the sense of betrayal. So he's first we see that he is overconfident by his abilities, and he forgets that Krishna is the his charioteer, and he orders Krishna to take him to the middle of the battlefield so that he can assess the opponents, feeling completely confident about knowing it all at that moment. But the moment he looks at the opponents, he begins to lose his own confidence, mainly because he has the sense of betrayal that is again coming because of the attachment that he holds on his near and dear ones. So we saw what happened to him after that. His consciousness gets clouded and his loss of ability to think. He was trembling. So basically, he was getting driven by emotion. So we see that betrayals can lead to pain. So the cause of pain is nothing but attachments here. And because of this attachments, it can cause harm in the course of action or decisions that we take. And the next aspect is how we deal with betrayals. So, surrendering to the divine is one of the best ways one can cope up with betrayals. And because this allows us not to further enter into a zone of darkness, and because we keep our trust entirely on the divine and we are driven by the divine, there is no question of misplaced trust arising. So, this is something that we saw in the previous session. And in this session, the topic of the necessity of a divine surrender is something that we'll be seeing. So, over to you, Sushrutji. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Namaste. Thank you, Chitraji. I think that was a very good summary. I couldn't have done it better. So, yes, now this is the aspect. Nobody likes to be betrayed, nobody plans to be betrayed, but when betrayal happens, we don't have any option but to deal with it, to cope with it. Sometimes we are too emotional. Because we are emotional, we lose our strength. Like the great Parantapa or Mahabahu, Arjuna was something, so many titles Arjuna had learned. He was not a young lad or somebody in his middle age having uncontrolled emotions. He was a grown up man. He was a dad. He was a dad of a big warrior also. And yet, we see Arjuna losing all his strength because of his attachments. He feels betrayed by whom we do not know yet. In the first adhyaya, we see what is the grief of Arjuna, where he tries to give so many reasons. He tries to understand. But we also saw one big problem is in betrayal is you start, if you are governed by emotions, you are not going to understand what is right and what is wrong. Arjuna was told by Krishna also, Arjuna, this is not the way. But he is not in a position to listen because his emotions have taken control. So first thing is, no matter what, we are not asking us ourselves to become emotionless. We are human beings after all. All of us will have emotions. The Gita is not asking us to become stone or become cold and indifferent, but how to go beyond the emotions or how to get free from the trap. That is the entire panda of the Gita, and we have to wait because Krishna has not yet started. Can anybody tell me why is it that Krishna doesn't start the pravachan in the very first adhyay? Any guesses?
I guess I guess it could be because it had to come from Arjuna to for him to guide him, tell him what it's all about. If it
Okay.
started um, giving
It's
his
Arjuna.
pravachan, as you put it, to Arjuna, it would not have entered his head. It had to come from him. He had to ask the questions in order
Yeah,
to be guided.
yeah. Because probably he needs to be receptive, isn't it? So
Yeah.
right now his emotions are only overwhelming, so much that he even says, Krishna, were you greedy? Was it for the desire of wealth that this battle was fought? It is like the savior is only being blamed. This is a very normal tendency. When people get emotional, they end up doing that. Arjuna is doing exactly what all of us do. Now, we saw one the last session that the only way to cope with betrayal, because now once betrayal takes place, you cannot do anything, isn't it? You have to cope. And the simplest way of coping, or the easiest or the most effective way of coping with betrayal is by surrendering to the divine. And that is exactly what our today's topic is, the necessity of a surrender to the divine. Can we just deliberate on this word surrender? What is this surrender? Is surrender necessary? Anybody?
To have total faith in the divine, in the God, whoever you
Okay.
communicate with. It's
Whoever
like a
we
child
communicate
having
with.
full faith in the parent that they'll do right by them. You know, when you
Okay.
help them, you have
Faith,
no choice
G.
but to surrender.
Yeah, well, faith is actually a good thing. It is like we can you connect it with a bit stronger word called Shraddha in the Gita in the Sanskrit language. But surrender is something like Sharanagati, no? Taking the Sharana, I am taking refuge. So, can we surrender to terrorists? Can we surrender to our enemies? Many times, armies are encircled by a larger army, and a smaller army surrenders. So, what is this surrender that? Because on the spiritual path, this is the what we can say master key for opening every lock. If we know surrender, no matter what. Yes, sir. Jagdish ji, sir, wants to add something. Please feel free to unmute, sir. Anybody, please feel free to unmute anytime. So, what is this surrender and how is it so necessary? How is it so important? Yes, please. Yes,
surrender
sir.
gets
Jagdish. Yes,
surrender
Usha ji.
surrender means we get our own will out of the way, and so that we are ready to accept what is the divine will in the situation.
Okay, so this surrender to the divine is what Shamali is saying. Yes, sir. Jagdish, sir. Yes, sir. Please unmute, sir. There's a, I think bottom left corner there is the mute button. You can audio button. You can just click on it and it can unmute, sir. We can't hear you, sir. Unless you unmute, we cannot hear you, sir. There is a at the bottom left corner. If you can click on the button, sir. I am sorry, sir. We are unable to hear you, sir. That I think unmute button. We'll have to figure it out. There's some. It's on the left hand side. So all right. So Usha Maji has talked about a divine surrender. Anybody else would like to add to what Usha Maji said?
I think it all begins with believing that there is a higher force at play.
Okay. Believing that there is a higher force, or recognizing that there is a force which is higher than ourselves. So you surrender to that. Okay? Means this is interesting. Dr. Atulji wants to add something? Yes, sir.
Surrender also means that we understand that, like, I am not the doer of whatever is I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm being driven by, by the higher power, by.
Okay. So that is true. But now we have to be sure, isn't it, that we are driven by the higher power. Sometimes a mouse gets drunk and tries to go and challenge a cat because I am now more powerful. That feeling comes in. But how do we totally understand? And the question of surrendering to whom then? That is another question. To a guru, surrendering to an enemy, surrendering to a terrorist. The
Surrender,
surrender. Yes, Majid. Yes, sir.
surrender
Majid.
in front of person or God anywhere. Who can protect us?
Who can protect us? But if we do not know only, and we will get betrayed only, isn't it? You surrender to the wrong person. There's in the prayer of Sri Ganesha, there is one more attribute to him, Guru Pakhanda Khanda Kaya. So he is the one who destroys the wrong gurus also. So how do we understand and what is the difference between, if we just look at what is the difference between surrendering to an enemy and surrendering to a guru? Anyone? Isn't it same ultimately? I'm surrendering here or there. If it is different, how is it different?
Surrendering to an enemy, you're still using your head. That you're still thinking, what am I going to do later on? Surrendering to your guru, it's for guidance. Surrendering to the divine means handing the reins over. You know
Yeah.
best. Whatever you tell me, I'll do.
Okay. Yes. So now, yes, surrendering to a divine is different from surrendering to the enemy. Now, divine is actually very nice. It is sometimes abstract also, no, because we cannot see the divine. It is directly. We can feel the presence. So we are not able to fully understand. But when we see an individual and or we see some guru, we are able to surrender to the guru. But same time surrendering to a person who is not your guru, surrendering to an enemy, surrendering to somebody who is not your well-wisher. What happens then? That person destroys you, isn't it? If you surrender to an enemy, you're taken as a hostage. You're going to be used as a bargaining chip for doing something which is not going to help you grow at all. But again, surrendering to the guru is very, very different. Surrendering to the guru is involving yourself to surrender all your shadripus, kama, krodha, mada, moha, matsar, all these ripus or the enemies, which are the enemies of an individual, which prevent an individual from growing, which prevent an individual from realizing his or her full potential. These are the enemies that have to be, first defeated instead of anything else. So surrendering to a guru is like surrendering to a catalyst who is not going to take anything from you but is going to transform you completely. That is why we have this Guru Parampara, the Vande Guru Parampara, which is going on from when? From the beginning of time. So, what happens when you surrender to a guru? You are able to understand things which are sometimes beyond your understanding. Your vision is broadened. You can see the horizon. Sometimes you can see what lies beyond the horizon also. You say Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Charachara Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. That which is brilliant, that which is so huge, all of that which is just pervading the universe, that can be realized. How? By the looking or recognizing, just by surrendering at the feet. This has been told by the greatest of great gurus. Does anybody know Sri Krishna also had gone to a Gurukul? Yes.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Shashiji, I mean, do you know
Yes,
if
yes,
Sri Krishna? Yeah, yes, Sarojini ji. Did you, I said,
Yeah.
do you know if Sri Krishna went to a Gurukul?
Sandipani Muni.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. What was the reason?
He was general, just like a human being, no? So
Ah,
everyone has to have some guru in their life,
yes,
even Rama also.
yes. Yes, each of even the avatars, they lead by example. We see in the Gita later on also that they become the example, they are the example. So even the greatest of great gods whom we worship, all of them had surrendered to their gurus, and this surrender only allowed them to harness the great knowledge, the great wisdom, what we call Brahma Vidya. Upanishads also can be understood when they are from a guru. Otherwise, it cannot. So the surrender aspect is very important. Another wonderful shloka, Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. When the guru opens the eyes, somebody has a cataract, they go to an ophthalmologist, isn't it? So the guru also is sort of an ophthalmologist without probably the same degree, and he does not do a physical operation. Krishna also does the opening of the eye of Arjuna, isn't it, in the Gita? Multiple times we see he says, I will open another eye, Arjuna, which will allow you to see the truth. In this horrible battlefield also, I will open that eye which will allow you to see my brilliant vision of the strength of the divine. See, he's overwhelmed with emotions and everything is against all odds. He is just standing and not realizing what he is going to do. And then when he gets the Vishwarupa Darshana, with the opening of the inner eye, everything changes. He suddenly realized his hands become like this. Oh, Krishna, in the first adhyaya, I was just shouting at you and saying, see, this Sanatan Dharma will get destroyed, Varna Sankara will take place, Kulakshaya, Mitra Droha, etc., etc. So many things I was teaching and preaching to you. But now I recognize you are the one, Sanatanastvam Purusho Mato Me. What happens? The hands become just folded and he bows. He bows and he's so not sure where to bow because the divine is pervading him all directions. He says, I bow from the front and from the back, from the side, because all around him he's seeing that. Sri Arvind inside of the prison in Alipur, he was put into that prison by a very devilish ploy to ultimately hang him for a crime he did not commit because he was rising. The revolutionaries' power was palpable and the British were wary of him. Inside of that prison of 6 by 9 feet solitary confinement, there he also got that realization. He saw Krishna. Krishna came to him and gave him the knowledge, the wisdom, the direction. So this is the truth. This is an experience. Anybody can just go and search the Alipur conspiracy case and share window. In Google, you'll find the best of best. I'm not promoting any organization. You can use Bing or any other browser. But look at that content there. It is beautiful how he sees the presence of the divine. And that comes from where? From a surrender to the divine. This aspect of surrender is very essential because unless the surrender is there, the realization will not come. Surrender is important. Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. He says, I'll give you the knowledge, I will give you the wisdom that will make you unique. That wisdom that will give you a, what we can say, a divine aura. That wisdom that will give you the direction. That also comes from the divine only. Anybody has known the name of, anybody knows the name of this great Vibhuti, Totakacharya? Or has anybody heard of this Totakashtakam?
Mm.
See,
Some of,
Shankaracharya's disciple.
yes, yes, Himaji has rightly said. This is, yes. His name came after the Ashtakam that he composed, the set of 8 shlokas that he composed. And his name was Totakacharya because Totaka is the name of a difficult meter. A meter that is not very easily, like in English, we have different rhyme schemes and poetic meters. Like that in Sanskrit, not even the wisest of wise don't really try to mess with this particular meter because it's difficult. But this was composed. So why is it so special is because that was the moment of transformation of Giri to Totakachan. Giri was a Shishya. Giri was a Shishya who did not have all the knowledge. He was the one who was considered to not have any knowledge at all. Yet he was sincere in his surrender, and that surrender granted him a wisdom. There was a beautiful moment where a big awakening took place. So surrender is important. Surrendering is essential. I think like that, like Totakashtakam, I think everybody must have heard of this Tandava Stotram, Shiva Tandava Stotram, isn't it? Anybody? Yes?
Yes, it was composed by Ravana.
Yes, Chitraji. Do you know any lyrics of that, Chitraji? Any words, any shloka? I mean, we shouldn't call it lyrics. The mantra, the any of the, how does it start? Or anybody? Jatatavi galajjvala pravaha pavita sthale. It goes on with such a rhythm. It is composed by whom? It was by Dashavakra or Ravana. Even now, today, the Pandits recognize that beautiful meter. But do you know how it? What was the origin of that? That anybody knows the story of it? When was it? It was composed in an act of surrender. First, there was ahankar. There was extreme ahankar. But then there came surrender, and that time this was composed. Anybody knows of it? A little bit about its origin?
Just a
I
rough
think
idea.
I think
Yes, yes.
he wanted to bring linga for her his mother's puja.
Okay. And he wanted to
Then
meet Shiva,
he
isn't
went to
it?
Kailas
Yeah.
and to bring that. But then he came to know that Ishwar will not give it very easily. So he started Pinnacle for
Yeah.
1,000 years with his
Okay.
nerves and
Acha.
everything.
Yeah.
I
Yes,
think
yes.
so.
That is the legend. That is the legend. Indeed, indeed. Yes. Yes, Maji. Hemaji was adding something. Is it? Yes, Hema
That's
Maji.
I've
Well,
heard of that story. I've heard that he wanted to bring that Shivalinga, but it was stopped. And
yeah.
actually, he he could not even move. They made him like, I mean, I'm not getting remembering the full story, but the fact is he could not
Hmm.
move. He was
Yeah.
stuck there, and he realized that he was so full of himself that he thought he could do anything. And
Yeah.
then when he was unable to even move, and in that snow, he was, I mean, kind of stuck there. Then
Right.
he surrendered. He realized Shiva is
Yes.
past superior. He can't get his way. So
Yes.
that was
Yes.
the time
Yes.
he made. He's kind of.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, Hemaji. So if you see, the legend has it that Ravana, who had such great strength, great force, so much that he could control the grahas also. That was his strength. Whether you can control the grahas, it is a different question. But with yoga sadhana, with tapobala, you can actually insulate yourself from the ill effects of the grahas also. And here was one Rakshasa who was also having the panditya. He had that knowledge also, he had the strength also. And so he went with this aim, and suddenly he saw he was being denied. He was being denied. Nandi is not giving him the pass to move ahead. He's like, how can anybody deny me, the greatest bhakta? So the force came inside of him, and that is it. He decides to disturb Shiva. So try disturbing Shiva from the trance, he tries to raise that Kailash, and then what happens after that is that Shiva doesn't get disturbed by the tip of his toe. He pushes it back, and this lands on him only on his hands, and he screams out in pain. And in that, that is a scream. That is why he's called Ravan, the one who cries. And that Ravana composed this in an act of surrender because he realizes now there's nothing. I cannot do anything without surrendering to the almighty force of the divine. So this surrender is sometimes brought about by force, but sometimes it comes very, very naturally. It is something which comes very, very naturally to an individual. Yes, Sunita ji, you want to say something? Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just like sometimes we say surrender. What happens is people say that, yeah, I have faith in God, I'm surrendering. but half the time they're doubting, like, will it happen? Will it not happen? So that is, I think we have to have that full surrender from our heart.
Okay.
So that is,
Okay.
this is what
Okay.
I feel. Sometimes it does
Yes.
happen. So,
Okay. Okay. Sunita ji has said beautifully that it has to be a complete surrender. It can't be in bits and pieces, isn't it? Little bit surrender I have done now. And this is the surrender to the divine, which is not to any other entity. When we say we surrender to the Guru, also we surrender to that Guru Tattva. That Guru Tattva is connecting the individual to that cosmic consciousness. Say you are in school, you do not know how to solve a particular problem. Say in mathematics also, we were learning when we were not knowing something. We would surrender to the teacher, isn't it? Because one problem can be solved in 100 different ways. But when you don't know anything, can you tell, hey, don't don't solve it this way, solve it the other way? That way you will learn nothing. Or if you're in a boat and you want to go, you want to travel, you want to cross the river, you will have to surrender to the boatman, isn't it? Or you're going in a new city, you have got a new driver, or you've got a driver whom you don't know, but you don't know anything about the city. But the driver knows everything. What Krishna uses in the 13th Adhyay, Kshetragnya, the expert in that Kshetra, the field expert. You have to surrender, isn't it? Can you say, no, 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 turn left, turn right, turn left? Irritated that if that person follows your route, you will get lost. That is why surrender is important and surrender must be complete. It should not be a lip service. So many times people pray, isn't it? People pray to God. They are sometimes they go to different Jajwalya Kshetras also. They go to best of best temples. They go to the best of most spiritual places, and yet they are so close physically, and yet so away from the divine because it is not a complete surrender, and that is why surrender also is not something which happens just like that. It is rare. Those are very big spiritual moments of transformation. That time surrender takes place. But still, to understand it, to experience it, to fully realize and practice it sometimes takes a lifetime. That is why yogis always try to do sadhana. They are doing sadhana because they have to understand, they want to understand a full surrender because every time just because I say I have surrendered, does that mean I will change myself completely? My mind will stop functioning? No. 2 minutes I'll say, oh yes, thank you. And then immediately my mind will start going back to its own usual routine. So that is why it is said surrender, as the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram also says, or Sri Aurobindo also talks about it. It is a lifelong process. It is not something which is going to happen just so easily. But if it begins also, it is a brilliant thing. Because what happens then? You become a Brahman, a Dvijottama or Dvija. You become a Dvija. If you see, our Dronacharya is called Dvijottama, the best of the best. What is the Dvija? Is a second birth. Many times a life's second birth takes place after the surrender takes place. A complete new life, a life of transformation after surrendering. Surrendering to whom? Surrendering to the divine, surrendering to the Guru. So this is an important thing. Surrendering completely, no holds barred. This is what is surrender. Without surrender, nothing can happen. You will not believe Arjuna he starts when he surrenders only first, at least even if it is not a full surrender, he begins the process of surrender and the Bhagavad Gita immediately begins in his life. Immediately after that, we will look at those shlokas of the second adhyay. The first part, because the surrender takes place, Krishna is ready. If surrender is not there, Krishna would not have told the Gita even for to his dearest friend, his beloved Arjuna, who has always been with him. Even he was not able to receive the knowledge because surrender is not there. Because you have to be ready to listen to the divine. There's a nice kawali. तूने क्या बनाई, तूने क्या सजाई, सब किया तो उसने. तूने बातें बनाई. You have only made stories about I did this, I did that. When somebody else, when the divine is the doer. So the doership, the hankar, all It is difficult, isn't it, to touch the head to the ground? It is difficult. It is difficult even to go to the divine. It is difficult to acknowledge the superiority of the divine because many times we feel if we acknowledge the superiority of the divine, we become inferior. But all our great yogis, all our great saints, they have always taught this surrender only. Has it made them powerful or has it made them weak? Anybody? Do they lose their Shatra Bala? Many people say, no, 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 I am the He-Man, I am the Alpha, I cannot surrender to anybody. Come on. The most strongest of strong ones have surrendered, isn't it? Surrender to the divine. That is very, very different from surrendering to any ordinary individual. Tulasi Das, Kabir Das, Rahim Das, Ram Das. All these are Das are what? These are slaves of whom?
The divine.
The divine. And that is the most exalted thing because that is why complete surrender is very important. Sri Aurobindo goes on to say that you have to become the servant and not just the servant, you have to become the slave. To be a servant of God is good, to be a slave is greater, to be a slave is better. How is it? How is it better? Or what is the difference between a servant and a slave? Anybody?
The slave just follows whatever is said.
Yes, isn't it? No rights, no, nothing. No, servant
No,
may also
no
have
questions
some,
asked.
no, and no chance for questions also because no, the entire freedom has been thrown away.
24/7 he is at the service of whomsoever he is slave
Yeah,
to.
yes,
Whereas
yes,
a
yes.
servant does only what is being told. That's the difference.
Yes, yes, right. And these ones who can do surrender to the divine is somebody whose mind is very strong to overcome attachments. Because you have attachments, surrender is not going to be possible.
True.
Without attachments, then only proper surrender can take place. And what happens with surrender? You become exalted. That is the important thing. Surrendering to the divine is not becoming. Many people say, what is this? Sometimes people surrender to a mission. People surrender to a cause. Everybody see how this person is going against the system. This person is going against the flow of the current. No, no, this is not right. You get destroyed. How can you surrender to somebody? How can you surrender? I remember when I first met my guru, Damleji, that was like in 2010 or 11. I started living with him since 2011. Somebody came and told my mother, oh, he has taken to spirituality. This was an aunt I knew from childhood. The way she told, he has taken to spirituality. It looked like she was saying that I have passed away in front of my own eyes. The expression on her face. No, because according to her understanding, spirituality was end of life. For me, it was a beginning of life. It was a new start. It was like right from, from being having colored hair and roaming around on my bike. I think I got a different direction. I could go on a different. I have nothing against coloring hair. Anybody wants, you can use all the colors of the rainbow also. That's their personal choice. But the surrendering or the beginning of the path does not take place without surrender. So it is important. That is why it is said, such, everybody must learn to surrender some time or the other. There is no early time or late time. It happens also correctly at the right time when you are ready. When you are ready, the surrender will take place. And then what happens? The Viyoga ends with surrender. What is Viyoga? Viyoga means separation. What happens when Viyoga separation ends? There is union, isn't it? That is only yoga. Krishna is called Yogeshwara, the Lord of Yoga, the one who brings about the union. And that is exactly why surrender is required. Look at Tulsidas. How was he? He became great. He had himself said, Tulsi, Tulsi, sab kahe, Tulsi ban ki घास. हो गई कृपा प्रभु राम की बन गए तुलसीदास. Yes, Tulsi is what? Just an ordinary grass growing in the forest. Nobody needs to water it separately. It just grows like that. But you see, this Tulsi got some grace of the divine and became the great Tulsidas. Or look at what was Anjaneya or Hanuman, what was his great strength? Anybody? He had all the siddhis, isn't it? But there was one siddhi which was the greatest, which allowed him to get back the siddhis that he lost. That was his strength. That was his greatest strength. Anybody? What was the greatest strength of Hanuman?
He could change his size depending on when it was
Yeah,
required. When he went to meet Sita Maj, he could shrink himself into a
yeah,
small
yes,
mountain.
yes, yes. He was the master of Ashtasiddhis, but he had lost all of them. But something happened which allowed him to again regain them.
His
That was,
devotion to Rama.
yes, his devotion to Rama by surrender. He
I
became the
said,
greatest. इसे मनोजवम माँ रुततुल्य वेगम जितेन्द्रियम बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठम वातात्मजं वा नरयूत मुख्यम श्रीराम दूतम शरणं प्रपद्ये. Means he is that. He's a Jitendra, somebody who has conquered his indriyas. So how can someone conquer by indriyas? By sadhana only, isn't it? By tapasya only, isn't it? Otherwise, somebody sits for meditation. It's so easy to get distracted. So many distractions. But someone who is able to overcome the distraction of the senses, that person is the Jitendra, that person. And that was how Sri Hanuman was. Manojavam ma Rututulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam. Wisest among the wise. That is why he understood the importance of surrender. Wise people think they are too smart. And that is where they lose everything. Despite having great intellect, despite having great knowledge, they don't know the meaning of surrender, and that is where they are missing out on everything. The faster than the wind, and he is somebody who has conquered his senses. He is most wise, but we understand him as the Duta of Sri Rama, the Dasa of Sri Rama. That is Hanuman, and that is a source of strength. So we all must identify one Shraddha Sthana. They say Eka Devo Bhava. Find your Aradhya, find your Ishta, find your Guru, one of the three, and surrender completely. Completely, because without that, the knowledge will not be received. And that is why the second Adhyaya of the Gita is so important. But then comes a big question. Isn't complete surrender scary? I remember one person, she had very elderly a woman who was going to take mantra diksha of a guru. She was so afraid of taking that diksha also. She said, what if I surrender now? I have to listen to everything. Everything in life then has to be done according to. She asked a senior sadhika who had already done that, who was around her age, if I surrender, will that mean I will not be able to do anything? I will not be able to go talk to anybody. I will not be able to do anything I want. Then that Shashya actually told her, surrender will give you absolute freedom. You can do anything that you want to. That is the meaning. But that was a fear inside of her. There will be so many protocols, there will be so many bindings. I will not be free to do this, that. All those fears were there. But practically speaking, isn't surrender a little bit scary? Anybody? Surrendering completely, full surrender.
Of course, it's scary. You don't know what's coming next.
Yeah, you don't know what's coming next, and many times there's fear of the unknown, no?
yeah,
What
you
is not
don't know what
known.
is expected out of you
Yes, yes,
once you
yes,
surrender.
yes.
It's easy
But
to
we
say,
don't know. Actually, so if we, Hemaji, you just said we don't know what is expected from us.
yeah.
Gita is all about get going and rising above expectations. So God is telling us to rise above expectations, but is God having expectations from us at the same time?
And
I
we
don't,
also feel loss of our freedom also if we surrender totally.
Ah, okay. Yes. Sugna ji is saying, sorry, ji. Yes, ji.
We lost our freedom. We have a fear that we are going to lose our
Ah, okay. But is that a rational or an irrational fear, Sugnaji? That loss of freedom, that is a perception, isn't it? After
yeah.
surrendering. But it's actually not such a what we can say thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but we all are control freaks. We want to control our life, and we think we are in control and we can do many things. It's not so, but we would like to tell ourselves that is possible.
Yes, yes. Yeah, what a wonderful statement, Dr. Sarupaji. We like to control things. We like to live in what we call our comfort zone. We don't want to do anything which is outside of our swabhava. We are bound by what sanskaras
We
we've
feel
had,
like
isn't it?
losing our personality.
Yes,
sometimes.
Om Prakash ji is saying, yes, sir?
We feel like losing our personality.
Yes, we feel like we're losing our personality. And that is like we feel a fish out of water. This is only keeping me. This is only keeping me this is making me what I am. This is my identity. I will lose the identity and I will become what is like a robot. That is what many people feel. And that is why that is a misconception though. I remember when I joined also the Dhamleji, I had phoned and asked, I'm feeling like eating bhel puri. What should I do? I was feeling guilty about it. And my guru said, go eat it. I was like, sorry, what? He said, eat. I was still more confused. Is it a test? Am I being checked? Will I lose my Shishya Sthana because I've eaten? But Adesh has come. So I thought, acha, theek hai. Maybe I've done something good, so I'm getting a reward. That is what it was a big monkey mind in the start. I was not able to understand, but at least I knew I had to listen. So I asked, how many plates can I eat? He said, eat how many over plates do you want? Then he said, I asked how many times? He said, how many over times? I was very, very surprised. I thought I am supposed to have control over my desires. And here I am. My guru is but then I thought, okay, let it go. So I had the freedom. And then I did something silly. I ate a lot of bhelpuri in continuous days, one after the other, and that attachment disappeared. I stopped feeling like eating it afterwards. So that was the freedom he had given me to experience and evolve. So wherever we are, our sadhana or Sanatan Dharma is offering us that freedom. Look at Bhagavad Gita. You study and see. Arjuna first says, I'm surrendering the second adhyaya, but he still questions Krishna again and again and again and again. And we are lucky because he keeps questioning. We have 18 chapters of the Gita. Otherwise, if I was there, it would have been very boring. Krishna would have I would say, what to do? Krishna would have said, fight. I would have said, okay, yes, sir, and end of story. There's no discussion, dialogue at all. But his freedom is there, and for each and every one, there is like a unique marga. The beautiful aspect of our Sanatan Dharma is we have the freedom to even choose our Ishta or choose our Aradhya. Where else can we get that freedom? It's like you go to a hotel with a big menu. Sometimes you really enjoy. You can choose, isn't it? What do you want? Well, our spiritual path also we have the freedom. Whichever Aradhya connects to us, we can choose. And then the beginning of the journey takes place. So, yes, so the question about surrender being in bits and pieces, no, it cannot be done in bits and pieces. It has to be done completely. And it is when it is done completely, only then the surrender will allow us to go ahead. And the last question before we enter into the Gita shlokas is surrender the end of everything? I have
It's the
surrendered to the
beginning.
divine now. My work is complete.
It's the beginning, actually.
Yes, yes, Shashiji. It is the beginning. It is the beginning of realization. The mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram was getting guidance on the occult plane from somebody she called Krishna. She did not know who it was. She saw the figure guiding her so many times when she was in trance also. But when she came close to Pondicherry, close to the fire, some few nautical miles around before reaching Pondicherry, she got the vibes, she got the experience, she felt the aura, and that was where her surrender began. And then she surrendered to Sri Aurobindo just in such a way that Sri Aurobindo has described it as a complete surrender. Every cell of the body becomes conscious in a complete surrender. No more are you different, no more are you separate. And that is beautiful because when that surrender takes place, we will see later on in what is the Vishwarupa also. Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, Even without you, I can manifest the will of mine. You don't think you are so great that I am dependent on you. Become the medium, become the madhyam. I will bring about the manifestation. That is what Krishna tells. Nimitta matra bhavasavya sachin. You become the medium, then I will work. So, meaning surrender is necessary for us to progress. Surrender is necessary for us to connect with the divine. Unless we surrender, we will not receive the consciousness of the divine. It will not flow through us. And this is one danger is also there if you do not surrender to the divine. You will become an instrument of the wrong forces. You will sink to destruction. It's like you do it or you'll be forced to do it, as the mother says. So with this, we will look at Arjuna because we saw in the first adhyay, Arjuna was very confident about himself, what he is going to do, what are his plans for defeating the army, and then suddenly he loses all his plans, go haywire. As I think Dr. Sarupaji talked about, Arjuna was pretty much feeling that he's in control. He wanted to ensure things go according to his control, and he is a big man, of course. He's fought so many battles, so he, of course, wants everything to fall in place. Now, that became a problem because we cannot control. Can we control the world? We cannot control our own mind. How can we end up controlling the world? It's not possible unless we get that much power. So here, Arjuna starts going on to a downward spiral run by his emotions. That is when Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, this is not the way. Krishna doesn't give the Gita initially. He just says, Klaivyam Masmakam Partha. Like a part, because Arjuna has not surrendered. Krishna doesn't go on telling the pravachan because I think we also must have experience, isn't it, with our friends. They come talk to us something, then we very sincerely give a big advice. We spend hours giving advice. And after that, we get more frustrated because after 1.5 hours of lecture, our friend does the exact opposite. Why? Because the friend is not ready to receive. So Arjuna is not ready. Without surrender, Krishna also will not start. So he says neutrally, Arjuna, Klaibyam Mas, don't be important in action. If you want to give up something, don't give up the battle, give up your ignorance. Stand up like a Kshatriya. Uttishta Parantapa. That's what he says. And that time we saw also the shloka number 4 of the second adhyay, where he says, Katham Bhishma Maham Sankhe Dronam cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyotsyami Pujarha Varisudana. Tell me how. I can't fight in my dreams also. Tell me how, as with weapons equipped, stand Reverend Bhishma and Drona in my sight. Both these great souls I have always worshipped. Even in dreams, them I cannot fight. So he's actually somewhere getting cornered right now. Earlier he was talking a lot, but now he says, No, I cannot. He goes on saying, Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamapih loke. Hatvartha kaman guru nihaiva bhunjiya bhogan rudira pradiktan. There's a big problem when we don't surrender. We work according to our own whims. We are what we can say most whimsical personalities of ourselves, not the real personality of ourselves. We are driven by our own thoughts, driven by those moments. So right now he says, I cannot kill my teachers. Instead of killing the experienced teachers, mighty, even a life spent begging for alms is worthy. If for my desire of wealth they are dead, the worst of dreaded sins will loom over my head. So he keeps trying to say, it is Papa if I take part in this battle. It is a sin, it is a sin. This language of sin and virtue also, for that we need to be calm, isn't it? Before we understand what is virtuous and what is not virtuous. If a thermometer is not working properly, can the doctor use it? Temperature is high or temperature is low. Thermometer is working randomly, sometimes high, sometimes low. It is something like that. When our emotions are out of our control, we cannot judge anything. Our Vivek Buddhi goes on a permanent vacation. As long as emotions are disturbed, we cannot get a clear understanding of what is right and what is not. And that is what he says. And he clearly says, see, I don't know anything. This is the point where No, this is a forced surrender which Arjuna got. Arjuna got a force, I mean, he developed a surrender out of force, out of circumstance, out of a situation where he could not understand. He said he is now in a catch-22 situation, frying pan and fire. I don't know what to do. This way also, that way also. Let's just look at three more shlokas. न चैतद् विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः ज्ञाने हत्वा न जीविषांस्ते अवस्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः. Killing my foes, my Kauravan brothers, I firmly refuse. From these two outcomes, how can one choose? Our defeating them or our being defeated? As both ways, my own life shall be desecrated. He says, no, see, this side also my own people, that side also. I cannot. I am now completely trapped. I do not know. If I stand also is a problem. If I go front also or back also, he is afraid. He is in a confusion. And it is this time only that the surrender takes place. In Arjuna's case. But do we all have to go to Arjuna's point to surrender is the big question. Should we go into a worst situation that we cannot? I remember a friend of mine. He drank so much cigarettes in the first year only. Drink, alcohol, and cigarette. That was his a very deadly cocktail. And then in fourth year, he began coughing out blood. 3 years he'd been destroying himself continuously. And then fourth year he started coughing, and that was where he no, no, now he says he read one particular book which tells everybody to convert into that particular book only, that teaching. So he started saying, now you must do this, you must do this. Now only then he is now turned to God is what he went on telling everybody. I do not know if he turned to God or he turned his back to God by just looking at some book. I do not know. But that was a forced surrender. I don't think we need to go to that point. We don't need to experience great devastating consequences to understand the need to surrender. Because if it is done out of free will, it can be more joyous, it can happen more easily. The breaking of bonds does not have to be painful also. It can happen like they say in the Mrityunjaya mantra. Trayambakam yajamahe sugandhim pushtivardhanam urvarukamiva bandhanat mrityor mukshiyam amrita. It talks about the highest bond. Bond of what? Death and immortality. That which is separating those two. That becomes so free, and the example given there is like a cucumber separating from its stalk. If anybody has cultivated and grown cucumbers, you can see when it is ripe, you just have to touch it lightly. It will come out on its own and separate. You don't have to use force, because if you pluck it before it's ripe, it's going to break. It is going to break a portion. So something like that, our surrender can ensure we become free. Free from what? We do not know what bandhanas we are carrying. Sometimes we are carrying prarabdha karma also. Karmas from a time we didn't know what we did also. Sometimes what we are conscious of, sometimes we are unconscious of. Surrender is that medicine, and that is why surrender is required. And now the Gita begins with this beautiful shloka. This is like the secret word, magic word that Arjuna tells. He says, Karpanya dosho pahatas swabhavaha पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यत् श्रेयः स्यान्न निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. He says, Shishyasteham, I am the Shishya, O Prapanna, protect me, Shadi Mam, protect me, he says. I ask to you in the state of confusion, tell me my right course of action. Thus afflicted and infected by fear, I seek your refuge. Show the way, teacher. He says, I have surrendered. Krishna, I surrender to you. Please, I am afraid. He says, I am infected by fear. I have an infection. That fear is just overwhelming me. I am confused. And show me the way is what he is asking. A grown up man is not feeling shy or feeling embarrassed in admitting. Is he admitting to everybody on online? Nowadays, people have the habit of sharing posts and statuses, isn't it? He is going in front of it's a very personal talk between Krishna and Arjuna. He surrenders completely and he says, I do not know. Show me the way. This is where the Bhagavad Gita begins. So it begins with the surrender. It begins with the beginning of surrender also, actually, because Arjuna's surrender is still not complete. We will see that. Because when it is complete in the last, Krishna tells him, you are free. You are free to do what you want. Somebody would think, no, you talk to friends and somebody takes consultation from you for 20 minutes also, you feel they are bound to obey you. Here in the middle of the battlefield, Krishna talks for 18 chapters. And finally, what does he say? Yat hai chasi tatha kuru. Because Arjuna has fully surrendered, and Krishna tells him, says, you are free to do what you want. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, he had gone and surrendered his entire kingdom to his guru, Samartha Ramdas Swami. Means the full Swarajya. He's a Raja, isn't it? Can the Raja ever surrender his Swarajya? He has to fight for everybody. But he goes to his guru and he offers it. And you know what the guru does? The guru doesn't refuse it also. He says, yes, now rule as my regent, go as my representative. What he needs personally, the Guru does not need anything in return, isn't it? So just recognize you are not. So the ahankar will never come in. Surrender is a beautiful weapon for us also. Surrender is a beautiful weapon to throw away the ahankar. Surrender is the weapon that will allow us to get the knowledge which will not only free ourselves, but will help us free all those who are also connected with us. So for that, we'll have to surrender to the divine. Who is the right one? How to find that? Probably we'll see later on in the Gita. Krishna talks about it. Guru, Prajna, Pujanam. What are the different aspects? So as we go ahead, we'll be able to see. But this necessity of surrender is important. It is important to establish. A Shishya immediately realizes, Guru bina jnana kahan se pao? Where will I receive the knowledge without the Guru? So that, and sometimes a lifetime is spent in search of a Guru, and the Guru comes. You don't have to go searching. Sometimes people in the corporate circles, they, over a glass of alcohol, they decide which Guru to be chosen, which Guru has what statistics, how many followers, how much turnover is there in that Guru's empire. All these discussions are had. That's not how we identify. Just have to surrender. Shishya has to understand the meaning of surrender. The day a Shishya understands what surrender is and practices full surrender, Guru will be present. The appearance of Guru is Guru Shishya relation. The Guru Shishya Milan also cannot be arranged by some broker. One broker who can arrange is the divine, nobody else. And that all the universe conspires to make that happen. But for that surrender, unless surrender takes place, it is not possible. We'll just look at the last sloka and we will conclude with that. Nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat yat shokam uchchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapat namruddham rajyam suranam api charipatyam. This is the understanding of a realized one. Arjuna tells Krishna, he says, this sorrow, no? This sorrow. Sorrow of what? Not understanding. He said, I don't know. I have realized I don't know. Kena Upanishad says that is the first ground for realization. If you do not know that you don't know, you will never get a chance. So here he has understood, but now he's feeling that. He says, nothing will take this away. He wants to know, like in the previous shloka, Yat Shreyaha Nishchitam Bruhi Tanme. Tell me what is Shreyas, what is right, what is needed for me at this moment. I don't know, and because I don't know, he says, I'm numb. He says, I'm unable to see what will drive this numbness away. Overwhelming me, this sorrow is here to stay. No happiness will come from any earthly aristocracy, neither godhood nor absolute supremacy. This great warrior who is so powerful, he can win any kingdom just by his brute strength also and his skill. He says, nothing will drive this numbness away, even if I become a god. even if I get absolute supremacy, even if all the kingdoms were under me only, I still will not be able to overcome. Krishna, I have taken your refuge. This is important. So I think in this one point we can end or conclude today's aspect of surrender is that yes, surrender is needed. Surrender needs to be done. Surrender has to be, its importance has to be realized. We can see what, if anybody wants to ask any other questions related to this, we can see that. Otherwise, we can ask our admin, Chitraji, to summarize. Yes, please. Anybody wishes to ask or share something, you are welcome. Or we go to the summary. Yes, sir. Namaste, sir.
Namaskar, Pranam.
Pranam, sir. Yes.
Uh, the the question you asked about what is the difference between servant and slave?
Yes, sir.
It was a beautiful question, and I felt that with respect to God, it is much better to be slave as against a servant. A servant invariably expects a salary, and he maintains himself.
Yeah.
While a slave's maintenance is on the master.
No salary.
No
Yeah, yeah.
salary, but master is supposed to maintain the slave.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
much
And
better
was
to be a slave that way.
yes, yes, yes. And the slave of a slave of divine is actually Raja of the world, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, there's a beautiful Sanskrit Subhashit. Sir's word just reminded. It said, Asha yaye dasaste dasaha sarva lokasya. Asha yasi desh dasi tesham dasayate loka. Meaning a person who is a slave of desire is a slave of the world. Anybody can make you do anything because your desire is you are going sold to your desire. Anybody will purchase you with that desire and do anything. You're a slave of the world. But somebody whose slave is desire, who has overcome desires and if desire has become the dasi of that person can become the ruler of the world or the entire world becomes the das of that person. That is why all our great saints have that name Das because they have become das of the divine, master of their indriyas and desires as well. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That was a great addition. Yes, sir. Yes, please. All right. Anybody else wishes to add? You are welcome, or we go to the summary.
Yeah,
Yes,
there is
yes,
something
yes.
that I recollect about the correspondence that we have, the correspondence sessions with Dr.
Dr.
Nirodharan
Nirodharan. Okay.
and Shri Aurobindo. So there also we see that Dr. Nirodharan had fear about not the absence of true surrender in him, and then Shri Aurobindo says that it is the first step, but true surrender happens over a period of time. If that was a prerequisite, even he could not have done as
Uh,
something that we see that aspect.
okay. So this is very heartening, isn't it? So slowly, slowly it will be realized. The journey has to begin. And probably I think journey begins and the steps will automatically fall in place. We don't have to worry. The divine will arrange the marga. Yes, please. Yes. All right. Thank you, Chitraji. Anybody would like to ask or share something? You're welcome, or we conclude. Yes. Chitraji, if you can do the summary, please.
Yes, Hari Om. Uh, the topic today was the necessity of a divine surrender. So we understand what is surrender, that is taking refuge. So why do we need to surrender and to the right person or the right guru? And what can happen? What are the implications if we surrender to the wrong person? So when we offer ourselves to the Guru, we're offering ourselves completely, and He is going to take us from our darkness towards light. So He's going to transform us, guide us, and help us in this path of realizing the divine. Whereas offering ourselves to the wrong person can have the opposite of these and can have negative implications and can lead a person into further darkness. And we saw that surrender can happen naturally to a person, and or sometimes it can happen because of some force. And so surrender has to be complete, and it is the beginning of the first step of a spiritual transformation. And we also saw that it's a lifelong process. And one whose mind is strong and free of attachments can the true surrender can happen to such a person. And we saw the examples of Lord Hanuman, Tulsidas, and how it was their act of surrender that allowed the grace of the divine to transform them, and they were the perfect instruments of the divine. And why is that sometimes surrender is perceived to be scary? It is the fears of the person. They may begin to feel that they may begin to lose their identity, or the fears of the unknown, or the self doubts of the possibility. All these together, or uh, and in a case to case basis, make a surrender perceived to be scary by people. And we must understand that surrender cannot be done in bits and pieces. So true surrender can actually free a person, and it is the first step towards realization. And we saw in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna expresses his inability to fight against his near and dear ones. And finally, out of all the emotions and confusions, he surrenders to the divine that he does not know what to do, and asks him to guide further. So, this is where the Bhagavad Gita actually begins. And we must remember that the divine can manifest his plans without having to yield to our will or how it has to happen our way. And we must be free as much as possible from the rigidity and allow him to work through us. So, a true surrender can prepare one to be free from all these bonds and hence become his instruments. So,
Yes. Thank you very much, Chitrali. That was a wonderful summary. All right. Conclude now with the Shanti Mantra. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyit dukkha bhag bhavet. Hari Om Tat Sat. Krishna Mande Jagat Guru. पुनर्मिलामः meet you all on Wednesday. Namaskar. Namaste.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om. Hari Om. Namaste.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om ji.
Hari Om.
Namaste. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Namaskar. Hari Om ji. Hari Om. We conclude our
Thank you so
session.
much. Hari Om.
Thank you ji. Thank you ji. Namaste.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om ji.